So, thinking is a very complex process. Now, for example, if you are sitting in the class, teacher is teaching, but you are feeling hungry. Now, there is this stimulus of hunger. At the same time, you also have prior information stored in your brain that if you eat during the class, teacher will punish you. So, then you will think of the ways and means by which you can eat your food slyly, so that your hunger is also satisfied and you are not also punished. Now, this will require a lot of stimuli, isn't it? Lot of stored information. Only then that information, past information and present information will be processed. You will look at it, when is ma'am turned her face, she is towards the blackboard, now is the time. So, all this will go on, and which means it requires more than one stimulus, and then it also needs processing and then the action. All this is taken care of by one main controlling body. What is that? One main controlling organ of the body? Brain. Brain is a very important organ, very delicate also, so it has to be well protected. Just like heart, it was well protected in the rib cage. Similarly, brain and spinal cord are also well protected in a bony structure. Brain in the skull, which is also called cranium, and the spinal cord in the vertebral column. But you know, these days there is so much of traffic. So, scooter or two-wheeler riders are also asked to wear helmet, because brain is so important. When the brain dies, we also die. Brain death is the first signal, first symptom, because brain is the controlling and coordinating organ. If brain is not there, then we cannot survive. But even this cranium is not enough. It requires more protection. It has to be protected from shocks which have to be absorbed. So, in addition to cranium, or you can say below the cranium and just above the brain or the spinal cord, there are three layers called meninges. Plus, between the two, there is cerebrospinal fluid. This cerebrospinal fluid also helps to protect the brain. It is filtered from the blood and it is rich in nutrients, oxygen, food, right? It also supplies hormones and it removes waste. So, now the brain, you understand, is very well protected by cranium, meninges and the cerebrospinal fluid. Now, we come to the structure of the brain. Brain is mainly made up of three parts: the forebrain, the midbrain and the hindbrain. After this, we will go into the details of each part of the brain and try and understand which part is doing which function. The forebrain is made up of two parts: the olfactory lobes and the cerebrum. Olfactory lobes are below the cerebrum and they are concerned with smell. The cerebrum has four parts. First part is the frontal lobe, this is in the front as the very name suggests. Then there is parietal lobe which is on the sides. Then there is temporal lobe which is in the middle, and then there is occipital lobe, which is on the lower side. The frontal lobe is concerned mainly with intelligence, memory, understanding. The parietal lobe is concerned with touch, pain, pressure, and taste. The temporal lobe is concerned with speech, hearing, and the occipital lobes are concerned with sight. So, cerebrum is a very important part, in fact the largest part of the brain. It is in two parts and they are called cerebral hemispheres. Each part is called a cerebral hemisphere. The two spheres are joined together. And not only this is the largest part, there are folds in this, because actually cerebrum is much larger than the space available. So, it cannot fit, but you know these folds are only in the human beings. If we study the comparative structure of the brain of various vertebrates, we find the brain of the fish is very small, and as we move on to the amphibians, reptiles, birds and then mammals, we find in the case of mammals the cerebrum is the largest, and among mammals also it is the human beings who have the largest cerebrum showing folds, and that is why you know it is the human being who is dominating the whole universe, because they have more cerebrum, more intelligence, and that is why they have learned to rule nature. So, after this we come to the midbrain. The midbrain is a very small area, and its main function is to connect. Midbrain connects forebrain with the hindbrain. So, you can say it is just a connection. The next important part is hindbrain. Hind, you understand, means something which is behind. The hindbrain also has two parts. One is cerebellum, जिसको छोटा मगज भी बोलते हैं. It is at the back, lower side and the back side of the brain, but it is very important. Actually in body everything is important. And the second part is medulla. The cerebellum is concerned with balancing of the body, and precision in voluntary movements. Now, what do we mean by voluntary movements? Voluntary means which is under the control of our brain, and involuntary which are not. What does that mean? They will happen in any case. Beating of the heart, movement of the digestive organs, all these are involuntary movements. And the voluntary movements are like I am writing on the board, I am walking, I am picking up something, I am bicycling, or I am swimming. All these are voluntary movements, and the precision of these voluntary movements is the area for cerebellum. The both voluntary and involuntary movements also have their place in the frontal lobe of the cerebrum. So, frontal lobe is not only a seat of intelligence, it is also a seat for voluntary and involuntary movements. But the cerebellum's importance is in the precision. If say my cerebellum becomes small or it is not fully developed, if I want to pick up a thing, my hand will not reach that thing. So, your ability to walk in a straight line, your ability to touch the fingertip and your nose without making a mistake, your ability to cycle, all these are the areas which are controlled by cerebellum. Then the medulla, this is the last part, it is like a triangle, it continues with the spinal cord, and this medulla is concerned with involuntary movements. So, even if the forebrain is damaged, one can continue to live. Why? Because of medulla. The basic activities, the basic movements of our internal organs will continue even if the forebrain is damaged. But if the hindbrain is damaged and if the basic involuntary activities of our life processes are not done, then of course we can't survive. Of course, if we are only living due to our medulla, that life will be only the life of a vegetable. You have heard that some people move into coma, their cerebrum is not working, but medulla is, so they are surviving. Medulla also controls some of the reflex actions like batting of the eyelid, sneezing, etc., coughing. So, this is how all activities have been divided among various parts of the brain. Found it interesting? Everything in proper control and properly coordinated. Brain in fact also controls the endocrine system, because the pituitary gland, the master gland, is in the brain.